Hey there, thanks for checking out the How to Get Lean and Enjoy Treats webinar. I'm going to give you a nice little sneak peek here of a training I just did with my personal clients, but I want to share it with you because this made such a huge impact for me and is making an enormous impact for my clients so that they can enjoy their treat foods, get the fat loss that they want in a sustainable way so they don't feel like they're overly restricted. I think you're really going to enjoy this. So without further ado, here is how to enjoy your treats. All right. How to set up your treat meals. This is the fun part. So let's say we have, I didn't write it in here, but like you need to have your meal plan set up. You got to know your meals as you're going to go into this so that the structure is just easy to manipulate. If you don't have a consistent structure, it's probably not going to work well. So get structure. Okay. Now we're going to dive into 4 different styles. Small treat with a calorie deficit. You can do like once a week. You can do a larger treat with a calorie deficit once a week, and then a larger maintenance calorie once a week, or splitting it up. And we're going to show you a couple different variations of that. So first one here, you have a normal calorie deficit day. So let's look at just a normal, like this is this person's based on their goals. You'll notice that they're actually 40% of the calories come from protein, 400 calories in the morning, 40 grams of protein, 400 calories in meal 2, 40 grams of protein, 400 calories, you get the trend. And they got 4 meals. So their total calories, 1600, total protein we're hitting. And if we look at that, that's the calorie deficit we want, at least 500 calorie deficit, right? Because that's going to get us at least 1 pound per body fat per week. Now we're going to manipulate this so that we shift just a little bit to have some calories. So bringing down 100 calories of the energy, this is my terminology, carbs or fat are energy sources because that's literally what that substrate does. Can't build, it's just energy. So we take the energy sources out of those 3 meals. That gives me an excess of calories that I can have at night with my protein shake. So at the same time, it's still pretty filling. It's still not that far off from what I normally eat. And because it's still a high protein meal, it's still pretty satiating. And you might notice a little bit more appetite during the day, but not as significant. And at the end of the day, like a 400 calorie piece of cake is a pretty satiating. That's like a cheesecake or something, right? But the cool thing here is pay attention to the fact that those last few numbers at the end here, because I still had room for 400 calorie piece of cake, could be ice cream, could be whatever you're thinking. And I anchor it to the protein shake because that's just protein. So that's a really easy thing to balance it with. Is that this is a calorie deficit still. This person's still losing body fat and they had a giant pizza cake, right? Now, I wanted to give you more like analytical view on this. So you really see these numbers, what they look like. Just to come back to the first meal here, 3 to 400 or 40. This is why we use egg whites, your meal plans. So the initial meal had 5 eggs and had 100 grams of egg whites. So that put it around 40%. Just these are rough, but 400 calories, right? Well, an egg has most of the energy source in it. That is the fattier meat, right? So if I go from 5 eggs to 3 eggs, I bring up the egg whites 100 grams. That actually balanced me out, right? So you see I have 40 grams, 300 calories. That's still a pretty filling meal, right? That's still 3 whole eggs, 200 grams of protein. You're still getting a lot of food there. Plus, I recommend you have micronutrients with this, like veggies and stuff. It's not just this, right? Put some salsa on it. Salsa is very filling with the salt. And then the next one, when we took the chicken breast, this is a very easy one to manipulate because the chicken breast is a lean source. And we're going to talk about this later. When it's a lean source, you just got to, the protein's a lean source. It's really easy to manipulate whatever your energy source is. And in the event of the salad here, the original salad is on the right, I just take a little bit less of the olive oil or whatever I use for my salad dressing, and I cut it down because it was initially 200 calories down to 120. And I was able to make that a smaller version of the salad, still a high protein salad and still satiating, right? Now, moving forward here into if it's like a bigger treat meal and still wanting a calorie deficit. So very similar structure here. The only thing I'm going to change because, first meal is the same, second meal is the same. Notice that if we come back here, meal 3 was still I have round lean carbs. Like I left that dessert for the end of the day. It's like the easiest time for us to have a nice little sweet something or whatever you're feeling at the end of the day, eating mindfully. And then let's say you want to have pizza or dinner with someone, you're going out. You still want to hit that calorie deficit. Well, we're just going to try to have that. And most of the time, it's the ballpark is approximately going to be maybe 40 grams of protein. You might have to search and maybe you even protein anchor it. But basically, we don't have any energy with the fourth meal. We plan on having that protein shake at the end of the day. And you enjoy a pizza or, maybe whatever you think would be around 800 to 900 calories. Because we took the calories out of this meal here that had extra 400 calories. This meal here is 300 calories, right? So we basically just anchored it so we have all that room in that treat meal right here, trying to keep it to the lower end. So the thing is if you plan on this being a deficit, I do recommend that you would track like how many pieces of pizza can I have? Can I have a whole burger? If I have half a burger and small finger fries. If you're trying to be in a calorie deficit, I'm saying you have to because we'll talk about how you can do maintenance and that's fine too. The protein shake here is something I still really recommend because you don't like a pizza actually is not going to have that much protein. You can get a meat lovers, and that's actually really fatty meat. So it's not that much, but it might be like 30 to 40 grams. Now, the protein shake does a couple of things, so because you can have that protein shake before, during, or after, and if you have it before, you got a better chance to tidy. If you have it during, it can fill you as you're having it, or you can have it after because sometimes you want to crave for another bite. And this is me personally. I'm not like, Easter dinner or something like that. And I know I want to have a little bit more, but I'm at like I've had a lot. I have a protein shake I can have when I go home. It pulls me out of so many meal types where I'm like, I love now this is me. Make sure you like your protein shake because that's how it's going to work. But if I really enjoy that protein shake, I like having it after. But sometimes even before can really work really well. But again, notice that it is likely going to be near a calorie deficit. Now let's talk about if we want it to be a maintenance treat meal. So big treat meal where, if you want a beer with it, you're less worried about it. Well, then we just simply eat more and we consider a maintenance. Like you just have to try to track it and appropriately balance it. It's a very similar thing, right? The one thing I say here is slightly less calories to give room for a larger treat at night, but just slightly. And I encourage slightly because I want you to, feel like you're a little bit more satiated. And I also I'm going to show you how to shift these numbers a little bit different because these are different meal types. As this is now egg whites and lean ground beef, and this is salmon and rice. So this is going to be a different calorie shift because I want to show you a few different examples from different meal types that you guys may be familiar with. Overall, this is treat yourself. You're giving yourself more room for error. Is fundamentally what it is. And again, the shake can happen before, during, or after. It is recommended that you plan on this. And this doesn't even have to be a protein shake. This could be maybe what I've done in the past actually works really well is if I'm having pizza, I'll just have a lean protein source with it. I'll just have a plain chicken breast on the side. And that will satiate me much better. Okay. So if you notice here, we add up the calories total, higher calorie range. We're approximating omega 160 and the calorie maintenance is 21, but I'm going to try to hit 2000 because I'm probably underestimating. That's just the probability that I prefer to go with. So you have a calorie range, try to aim to be under it, but we give ourselves a bigger room for error here. So let's look at the shifts here because these shifts are, again, helpful for you to see how I swap these around. And you could easily make these a little less. Again, I'll come back to this, is just to make sure that when we're doing this, it's so that you're not crazy hungry going into this meal if you're going to eat more in it, if that makes sense. Because we do want you to have fun in this meal, but not to be like binge, right? Or be like, oh, well, I have so much room for calories. I want you to feel like you have some room, but you're not going to go crazy. That's just a recommendation in that meal. Okay, so now let's go back to this. The main thing here, this is super easy, right? Because with the salmon, we're literally just talking about less rice. If you just have to titrate the carb or the fat, super simple. right? So I had 85 grams of rice. Now I have 45. Nothing complicated there, but the macros match up pretty well. Okay. Now, the next one, this is where it's a bit different, and I wanted you to see this. This is how I do it. There's so many different ways you can make this equation fit. The only two numbers I'm really staring at are like, how do I move around energy sources so that I have the right protein and right calories? So here, I just took the eggs out because the eggs are kind of an awkward protein anchor to me. And I could have done one egg and then some lean ground beef, but it was super easy math to just figure out, well, if I take the egg out, I cook egg whites and I put them in ground beef, how much ground beef can I have? And how many egg whites can I have? And so I just took that out. You could probably still have one egg or two eggs and you could titrate a little bit. The important thing though is that lean ground beef and eggs are both fatty sources of meat. So you're going to need to decrease one or two of them and increase the egg white because that's the protein content. So as I took out one, and the thing is the eggs and the lean ground beef have protein in them. So as you take that out, you're taking the fat out, but you're also taking out some protein. So that's why we would increase that egg white. So you can see I double the egg white, take out the eggs, and put in a little bit more lean ground beef from around that 315-40. Okay, now a calorie deficit with a small treat version. Here, I just wanted to show you how you can fit this in so that we're talking about just like a little treat version you could have kind of during the week. You could just like different variations that I'm trying to show you here. So same idea of what we just did. If you go back to this, where there was like 350, now we're not having a big meal, but basically I just chopped 50 out of the first, chopped 50 out of the second, chopped 50 out of the third. Now we have a bunch of excess calories at the end of the night, so I can have some cookies. That sounds pretty good to me. Again, teaming up with that protein shake, pretty good amount of treat meal there. And I mean, the 7-Eleven cookies, there'd only be two of them, but that's still cookies. It could be on a Wednesday night and still hitting a calorie deficit. So that's pretty cool. Um, Normal deficit, right? Just a small, you could also do a smaller, that's what this one is. So this is version one where we actually have a little bit more room for your treat. If you want to have a bigger, like a small treat, but decent size. But then if you want to have a smaller treat where it's like, technically that's a candy bar. 240 calories candy bar. So let's go back a little bit here to the original one, just so you see it. It's just protein shake and berries is a common one that I sent to a lot of you guys. But that means that there's like 300 calories coming from berries, right? So if you just cut those berries, or 200 some calories. So if we just cut those calories out from the berries, you can have like a chocolate bar. That's fine. And again, we're just talking about satiety and adherence. That's the concern about having a chocolate bar, and you're not getting as much micronutrients, so we don't do it routinely, right? Now, when I talk about the other variation, it would just be like planning it out throughout the week. It's like, can we do this? When do we do this throughout the week? And this is all about your level of adherence. You know, some weeks I'll do one. Some weeks I could do two. But here's an example of multiple treat days. So maybe, you have your deficit Monday, Tuesday, and then Wednesday, you're like, I just want to have a smaller treat like that one we just did, like this one here. Maybe I just want to have a chocolate bar on Wednesday night. And this is very intentional, Wednesday or Thursday, that if you can have just a little bit of something nice halfway through the week, it'll make you feel that much more accountable to the Thursday, Friday, where you're not like, okay, I can't wait for my treat on Saturday. Like it makes a difference cognitively. But some people need to get like, I'll even change like this, where I need to get some momentum. I need to get 5 straight days just to really get like not craving sugary foods. Because some people are like that. Some people need 2 weeks before they can have another treat food because they start craving them too much. So you got to know yourself as far as adherence goes. But then we have Thursday deficit, Friday deficit, and then Saturday. Maybe you want to have a deficit treat or a maintenance treat. It could be Saturday, Friday, Saturday, or Sunday, whatever day kind of works for you. And then it can kind of fit in, right? So that's even a model where you have 2 treats within a week. Now, do you want to have 2 maintenance days within a week? It's up to you. Just remember that we're looking at a model where we're trying to hit a deficit of 500 calories. and we're trying to do that 7 days a week, that would be a 1 pound per week. So every additional maintenance day would cut that speed down. So you would lose less weight sooner. So that's important to consider. Some principles to follow here so that you can understand the structure a little bit better, because there's some things that might help you. I've talked about a few of them, but let's try to dice through these, make sure it makes sense for you. Protein types that are easy to protein anchor, leaner meats. Protein anchor just means like you can play with the macronutrients, like so it's mostly protein in that meal very easily. So egg whites, salmon, chicken breast, pork tenderloin, eye of round, fish, whey protein isolate. These are protein anchors because they're mostly protein, and they usually have an additional carb or fat added to them, and we can take out a little bit of an additional carb or fat. The fattier meal types are harder to do this with, like clean ground beef, sirloin, and eggs. But you can team the two up. So, like I had shown you, when we teamed up the lean ground beef with the egg whites, that made it really easy to shift that number around. When we, if you had sirloin and you wanted to team it up with like maybe weird chicken breast, but you could then shift that number around. Or a protein shake is the easiest one. Like part of my meal plan now offers like the eggs and a whey protein shake because it just protein anchors it really well. And so make sure you have a plan. This is the one thing I really recommend as a principle. We're not going to say, oh man, I had a rough day. I think today's going to be a treat day. And then just go and eat your treat and then making your macros fit it. You should go in with a plan, have a routine around it, and get used to that routine, have a ritual so that you can eat it mindfully. And that's the next piece. This is probably the most important piece. Okay. And this is my opinion, just how big of a difference it's made for me in my life. I heard about mindful eating before and I didn't value what it was. It's paying attention to the food you eat without being distracted. It's not watching TV while you do it. And it's not, and this will get you out of mindless eating, and it'll make the food much more purposeful. I want you to think about, and I know you've had a conversation with me about this before. I guarantee you it's just a broken record, but I'm going to say it again. If you have a conversation with someone while you're trying to watch TV or play video games, how good does that conversation go? It's a terrible conversation because you can't do both at the same time. You're bouncing in and out. We're not multitaskers. We just bounce back and forth. And if something like TV can be, so detrimental to a conversation, how much are you actually getting out of your food? Especially remember that we're talking about true food. We're talking about the tastiest shit that has very low micronutrient value. It is only there for enjoyment when it really comes down to it. It's there to give us energy, which isn't our problem. We have an energy abundance problem if we're trying to lose weight. And it's there because it fucking tastes good. And if you're not paying attention to that, you're going to overconsume it. And even if you get that one of those treat meals, you go to one of those models, you'll be like, wow, that cookie just didn't last because you're not eating it mindfully. So eat it without television or distractions. Focus all your attention on that food experience. Rate the food, the texture, the mouthfeel, the overall experience. Just be immersed in it for 10 minutes. That's all I'm asking. 10 minutes of eating a cookie. And I highly recommend you share it with others because this will double the pleasure and experience simply by discussing the food experience, simply by being with someone. And I'm not kidding you. You're going to go back to like, remember that cookie we had? Remember that pizza we had? And it now actually feels really fulfilling. Now I look at that food as a real health food because it's a part of your social health. And, I wouldn't even call that emotional eating. I would call it social eating in a very constructive way. Okay. And a few other cautions here. Okay. This is on both the fat loss and the treat meals and everything. Long road ahead. Okay. Literally take this 1 week at a time. You will get bored. You will get frustrated. You will get tired, but that will subside. You'll start to embrace the routine around structure, and hopefully that lives on long term. Right. Second, emotions. When eating or thinking about food, it's okay to have them. I'm not against emotions. Pay attention to them. But when you have an emotional craving for food, pay attention to it. Maybe it's not food. Maybe something traumatic happened in your life. Maybe you're stressed about something. Maybe there's something that just driving you into trying to find a quick short-term solution. Well, you know what? Food worked for me in the past, so that's why I go to it. That's exactly what emotional eating is about. Because if food isn't the real problem, because like if you're not just complete so hungry because you haven't eaten in 16 hours, it's not the solution. It's just your emotions trying to tell you that because in the past, when stress hits, when you have a problem with things, you simply go to food because it makes you feel really good in an instant. So emotions are not to be ignored, but they are to be recognized. And then I challenge you to sit with them. I challenge you to say, okay, this is how I feel now. My normal instinct is to go into food. Well, what if I just sit and felt this emotion, thought about this emotion, walked, went for a walk on this emotion? Maybe I could actually find out what it's about. Oh, I'm stressed about work. Oh, I'm stressed about this. Okay, let's feel that emotion and manage that feeling within ourselves rather than numbing ourselves with food. That's the best recommendation I can get in a very quick synopsis. But that is the fundamental approach to how I've been taking my emotional eating, and a huge game changer. Okay. And if you want more follow up on this, I have a little webinar from Adele's book that really makes a difference. Mistakes will happen. This is not even a question. You got many of you in this challenge, and that's super exciting. And all of you are likely going to fail at something at some point, but not really failed, right? You're going to mess up, but you haven't failed unless you give up. Failure is giving up, not seeing the challenge all the way through. But if you have one or two or even 20 bad days, but you're still trying to finish the success, because you went through that process, it's a complete success. Because you went through a process. Really think about that. You went through a process you didn't want to, even when you're messing up. That's more admirable. Even the person who, let's say, wins the challenge, right? Because they go before and after they follow through all the consistency. I am way more impressed with the person that had a lot of slip ups that still saw it through, even if they didn't get great results. Because the process is the result, because you doing this for yourself. It's the whole idea of the game. So next, we got a lot of cautions here. Calorie estimations. Give yourself an error rate of about 50 to 75 plus or minus, but try to be under your calorie estimation for room for error. Okay. If you go over, it's not the end of the world, because these are always like even calorie predictions on the nutritional facts are 10 to 20% error rate. There's a big error rate. So that's why you give yourself room for error. And if you go slightly over, it's not the end of the world. But we're just trying to give yourself that error rate and be okay with error, but try not to be too okay with it, if that makes sense. It's a fine line to walk. Work out on treat days, you don't have to. This is actually just an interesting concept that there is some physiological reasons that you could benefit from an exercise day. It's like when you just finish strength training, your body's probably more receptive to a carb load, but it's not so impactful that you would see a difference. It would your routine, how much you eat, are you eating it mindfully? Who's around you when you eat it? What circumstance are you doing? Those are the most impactful. Your routine is the most important thing. And I could even make an argument that if you had a treat day and then you're strength training the next day, you could probably perform better. So you can make an argument for both. Focus on your routine and consistency with the total quantity of calories. That's what matters most. Activity buffers aren't a terrible idea. Now, this just means consider being active on that day. You do not have to. It's not the most important thing. But let's say it's a treat day on a Saturday and you don't actually have a strength training day, or you do have a strength training day, but like just to give yourself at least that 10K steps, maybe 1200K just for that activity buffer is not a bad idea. Not saying you have to do it, but I don't see that as being a bad thing. I don't want you to think you have to exercise for the right to food. I'm saying that it's an activity buffer. It buffers your calorie room for the chance of a spillover, not to drastically overconsume or overdo calories just for the sake of, because then you'll want to eat more. Caution 3. There's a lot here. I told you. Weight and scale. I've never dealt with so many questions about the scale in the last month. I've been getting my clients to use the scale more, so that makes sense. Don't get mad at the scale and change your plan. Okay. You only compare your scale from one month to the next, not day to day or week to week. You'll be guaranteed to fluctuate, especially after treat meals and so many other reasons. So The trend slows down and shows over weeks. So don't compare April 6th to April 7th. Let's compare April 6th to May 6th. That's where we see the results. Okay. Trust the calories. Don't cut your calories lower than recommended. This routine is made to be simple so you can sustain it after 12 weeks. Remember, it's going to lead to metabolic adaptation and a higher chance of a crash diet. Want to go faster? This is honestly how I feel. If you want to hedge your bets, give you a good self chance at really trying to do well in this challenge against everyone else, walk more. Walk more outside. I did not say do more cardio. I said walk more. So if your normal is like, yeah, I normally hit 10K, no problem. I'm all for doing 12K steps. Again, make it sustainable. Don't make it awkward. Don't make yourself hate it. But if you want to walk more, that's going to pay dividends, and it'll pay dividends in your health. And like I say, outdoor walking, and I actually didn't mention this, outdoor walking is just joint healthy. Even like a treadmill and any sort of low impact machine, it's not really actually made for our joints. It is, but it's not like not a lot of it. Whereas our bodies were totally made for miles and miles of ground walking. You can handle a lot of it before it becomes an issue, unless you have a terrible gait, which let me know if you have joint pain walking. That leads me to the next one, communicate. So most critical thing for the program. That's why, like when I showed you that, the whole check-in sheet is like, I see people do the worst in this program when they don't talk to me. It's that simple. So allow yourself to be coached and reach out when things are not going well. That's what matters the most. That's why I'm here. Enjoy the diet and lifestyle. That's why I said it is an enjoyment. Even though I said enjoy desserts, it's 90% of your diet needs to be something you enjoy. That literally means your meal plan. I said it might be boring. I didn't want you to suffer. I just had a chat with someone today who's not liking their food. And it was like, fuck, we are not making you eat that food anymore. Stop it. I'm not trying to get anyone to choke down food they don't like. We need to be vigilant. We need to work at finding recipes that we like. You got work to do for sure to find good whole foods that you like, but they're there. They're absolutely there. And you want to find the right amount of pleasure in food, being filled by your food. You want actually just the right amount of pleasure from food. Let's think about that. Like when we're talking about the 90% of good whole foods, we don't expect it to be 10 out of 10 for pleasure, right? Obviously, watching TV is a lot more fun than going to work, but we should enjoy going to work to a certain extent, right? It can't have the same pleasure content that you have with TV. Food's the same way. You should enjoy that food. I don't expect you to enjoy it as much as the pizzas and cookies and ice creams, but if you ate that all day, you know what you feel like after. And we should enjoy that food so we have the right amount of it, right? That's why it's great with fruit. You eat fruit. I can only eat so much fruit. I don't know about you. I can have a decent amount, but not way too much. And just like the lifestyle, making sure that everything else that you're feeling good and you're enjoying it. A couple other notes here. You'll notice examples there on my net diary. Most people have been working with me for a while know I'm a huge fan of this app. This is the app I recommend everyone uses. It's super simple to use. I have a lot of tutorials on how to use it. If you haven't done the 2-week challenge yet, you don't have to worry about this yet. But this is where you're welcome to play around with it, because this would be the app that I recommend that you use. It's free. You don't have to sign up for the whole thing to get access to the scanner and everything. It's just the micronutrients, which you don't need to worry about. But you're welcome to play around with it and do tracking here and there if you're curious, and especially if you're trying to do your own treat meals. If you're experiencing the program and you want to understand how I shift my calories in my net diet, I can show you some videos on that. I'll be making that next week. And it shows you a few very specific examples of how I do it specifically with my meal plan. And it might make it more clear for how do you use my net diet to shift your calories around. It'll be very helpful. Still want help, still not clear. I don't understand how to have treat meals. Still, just send me a DM and let's book a call. Let's walk through it, because I want to make this simple. I want to make this easy for you and be coached. So let me get you through this. I'm here to help. How much do I eat on my treat day? What day do I have? What meal plan do you think I should use? If you're not sure about this stuff, reach out to me. Okay. So I want to ask you if you have any questions. Just know, even though that was a live training, you can DM me. You can just message me directly. You can check me out at RQ Training Nutrition on Instagram. You can email me at rylandquali@gmail. But I'm here for support. I'm here for help. And if you want to know more about my program, because we do a ton of trainings like this, we have a ton of resources. I can be there for support for you. So don't hesitate to reach out. And thank you so much for checking out the training. And please let me know if this helped you because I really want this to do things to help you to improve your relationship with food. And so you can end yo-yo dieting and you can lose body fat forever. So thanks for checking this out and let me know how it went.